early access for the expansion is about to be over in 24 hours. The expansion is about to fully release tomorrow. A few more things are going to be unlocked after early access. So what we're going for today is the to-do list, things to keep track of, things to farm or to grind or to collect with the release of the expansion. Because even though you have been given multiple cool sources for guides, infographics and sheets for all of these things, many of you can't read anyways. So instead, you're getting all of this QOL and cool tips in video format instead. Let's start with the first point, the first question that players might have just to know where their character is in general, which is the item level, which is the gear. Where would you want to be at the end of this first week or first couple of weeks of the full release of the season in terms of character power, right? Well, the actual answer, depending on how much of a tryhard you want to be, will be midway through 585 item level for your gear. Now, how do you get this 585 item level? Number one, in a day, heroic dungeons are going to unlock. They will be capped in item level. Normally, heroic dungeons would be dropping 580 item level gear, but not for the release of the season, not before the season opens with Mythic 0. Up to then, heroic will drop 567 item level gear. So already from there, just spamming heroic dungeons will get you to 567. Now, as you are spamming dungeons, you are also getting Valor Stones, which is this expansion's version of Fly Stones from Dragonflight, and Weathered Harbinger Crests, which are the lowest level crests you can get. Now, Valor Stones can be used to upgrade your gear all the way up to 580 item level. So even if you're looting item level capped heroic gear at 567, in these first couple of weeks, you can continue to farm heroic dungeons, to continue to earn Valor Stones, and continue to upgrade that heroic gear up to 580 item level. That was the point on depending on how much of a degenerate you want to be. Because if you keep grinding heroic dungeons, you can also upgrade all of your gear from 567 that you got from heroic dungeons all the way up to 580. That is the first point. The second point is the rep, is the Renown. As you know from Dragonflight, there were quite some degenerate and unethical grinds being done just to get to Renown 24, and even to a couple of the steps before there where you could get some gear, some higher level gear from Renown levels. At least for now, none of these kinds of grinds have been found, like the Maruk, Centaur, Hands, for example. None of this for now is in game, but you can still farm your Renown to try to get to Renown 24, because at Renown 24 is when you can get the rewards of the enchanted crest, so the one you need for your crafted item. Now, not many players will need this. Usually only the very high-end guilds going for world first use their spark, their crafted spark with this enchanted crest, which is not the higher level one. But if you still want to farm your Renown, then the suggestion would be to wait until the 1st of September, so wait until next Sunday. The reason being, obviously, that the next Sunday the Dark Moon Fair begins, meaning that you can get your 10% rep bonus from the Dark Moon Fair. So every single rep token you are getting now should be held until the 1st of September, when you can use it during the Dark Moon Fair. Every single side quest should be held until the 1st of September, because many of the side quests will be giving you 250 or 500 rep with your factions. So if you wait for Dark Moon Fair, you will get a 10% bump in there as well. Same goes for the weekly events. Spreading the Light in Hollowfall, Theater Troop in the Isle of Dorn, and Awakening the Machine in the Ringing Deeps. You can do them this week, this reset, but next reset you should not do these weeklies on Wednesday or Thursday or Friday or Saturday, but on next Sunday, when the Dark Moon Fair will be open, and you will be able to complete these weeklies with the Dark Moon Fair buff. So hold on doing side quests, and hold on the weeklies of next reset until the Dark Moon Fair begins, if you want to maximize your rep. Then, of course, if you want to spend some money, get yourself a contract to use with one of the factions to also further maximize your rep gains. Now, talking about crests, as mentioned, the lower level crests, the weather crests won't really be needed once the expansion begins. Even the second level of crests, the blue crests, carved harbinger crests, won't really be needed, because once the season begins, heroic gear, mythic plus gear, mythic raiding gear, they will not need these two kinds of crests. So there is not going to be any min-maxing with holding your crests, saving them for something. You can pretty much freely spend your weathered harbinger crests right now. Even same goes for the carved harbinger crests. If you manage to get yourself some 597 plus item level gear, which requires carved harbinger crest to upgrade, if you think it's in a good slot, for example, you get yourself your hands on a good trinket, then you can freely spend those crests already, because they won't really have a use in a couple of weeks. One thing that can still happen, although it's not to the same level of degeneracy of the first week of Dragonflight, is the farming of the rares. They can make you get some discounts on the amount of Valor Stones you need to use to upgrade, because you would need Valor Stones from 567 all the way up to 580 to upgrade your heroic gear, but these rares can give you already 580 or 577 item level gear, meaning you would be saving a few hundred Valor Stones here and there if you got the loot from the rares. As I said, it's not nearly to the level of the rares you were hunting at the beginning of Dragonflight, but it can still save you some time. Another bit that will be quite relevant is going to be farming your rep with Brann. How so? Because delves are going to be quite important in the first week of the season. After that, not nearly as much, but even for players who don't mythic raid, they will still be quite relevant. The point is that when the season launches, delves will be part of the vault. If you complete 3 or 6 or 12 delves, you get your 1, 2, 3 slots in the Great Vault. Why this is relevant is because the higher level delve for your max Great Vault reward will be delve level 8. And in the week of the beginning of the season, from the 10th of September, that will be the best possible Great Vault reward you can get. It will be at hero track level 3. If you consider that during that week only Mythic 0 will be available, the reward from the delve will be a whopping 13 item level higher than the reward you can get from Mythic 0s. And when it comes to the Heroic Raid, you can look at the item levels from Heroic, only the last couple of bosses if you're lucky to get them from the Great Vault, and if you are even killing the last couple of bosses in week 1, might give you a superior reward compared to the delve. That's why it's important to level up your Brann. Maybe you have a terrible spec, maybe delves will be hard for you, so you want to have a higher level Brann to make your delves easier. So you have an easier time grinding those 12 delves to get your max options in the Great Vault. The other point for the delves are, of course, the restored Coffer keys. The restored Coffer keys that you can get on a weekly basis are necessary because on a rotation you will have about 3 delves every week, which will be bountiful. Bountiful meaning you can enter them with the addition of a Coffer key, which will give you a gear reward, a guaranteed gear reward at the end of the delve. And that guaranteed reward will be 603 item level. So it will be a champion track item on par with a world boss reward, on par with a normal raid gear item, and 10 item levels higher than a Mythic 0 item. Now, that week, you can only do Mythic 0. Mythic Plus is not even available. So if you get into that week with 4 to 5 different Coffer keys, that means you can get yourself 4 to 5 items at 603 item level guaranteed. That is the importance that delves will have in that week. Of course, the week after that, once Mythic Plus opens, that will be much less relevant, so it will be quite outdated very quickly, but in the first week it will be very relevant. So after these next couple of weeks, where your item level is expected to be around 585 at max by getting all of your gear from heroic dungeons or from rares between 567 item level and 580 that you have upgraded with Valor Stones, you might, as mentioned, freely use weather crests to upgrade the gear to 593, or to have crafted an embellished weapon, for example, at 590 item level. Once the first week actually launches though, is where you will be expected to start to get close to 600 item level. That's obviously because Mythic 0 is available and Mythic 0 drops 593 gear. So, much like you farmed heroic dungeons giving you 567 item level, once Mythic 0 opens, you are farming Mythic 0s to get to 593 item level. Except this week, as mentioned, you're also turning in your Coffer keys for multiple pieces of 603 item level, as well as the other type of crest you can freely use, which is the carved crests. Those are the second tier of crests and they stop halfway through champion track or at the end of the veteran track of your gear. They will become outdated as soon as you get into Mythic +6 territory, as well as soon as you get into heroic raid. So for many / most players, they will become outdated very quickly, which means you can also freely use them and get yourself as close as possible to 600 item level. Then of course it will depend on how lucky or how privileged you have been in receiving raid gear, right? Raid loot. Maybe you are a friend of the raid leader and you get 7 pieces, or maybe you are a healer and you get 0. That can happen. But this is it, really, for the first couple of weeks of the expansion. To save the side quests, the rep tokens, and the weekly events until Sunday of next week because of the Dark Moon Fair giving you the rep buff. Try to get as many Coffer keys as you can, because in the first week of the season they will be the strongest and the best way for you to get gear, both from the End Delve reward by having used a Coffer key and also from the Great Vault. In that week of September the 10th, it will be the best possible reward you can get. In this current week, after the full release of the season, you can keep farming dungeons to get as many Valor Stones, as well as capping your weathered crests to upgrade your gear and to stockpile on your Valor Stones for the following weeks. Continue to run delves still to keep upgrading your Brann, because having a stronger Brann will make it easier for you when it is actually time to be farming delves at level 8, which might be, or definitely will be, tougher than now. For extra min-maxing, of course, you can also track some of the rare mobs giving you loot for your spec, for your class, for your armor type that you might need, and kill them on a daily basis to hope for the gear drop you need, as well as if you have money to spend to get an early contract for your reputation gains. As well as no real limit, no real min-maxing on how and when and on what to be spending your weathered Harbinger crests and your carved Harbinger crests, because they are pretty low level and will be outdated very quickly as soon as the season actually launches. The last of these suggestions, this is a bit more on a high end though, is that for the first 2 weeks of the expansion, actually, the best reward from the Great Vault will very likely be to get a socket. The reason is quite simple. By the end of the week of next reset, the one that will end on September the 3rd, as well as the end of the week after that, the one that ends on September the 10th, the best content you can do for your vault is heroic dungeons. And heroic dungeons will get you a 590 item level from the Great Vault. That is very poor. You can literally hop into Mythic 0 that very same week and start looting a whole bunch of 593 item level. So that reward from the Great Vault will be terrible. Which means the very likely best result for you is to ignore these heroic dungeon vault rewards and instead get yourself a socket. So you will have 2 sockets ready to use on actually good gear. For example, the first high item level crafted item that you loot, or for example, if you get ahead of the curve and you get your free token for a tier piece, you can spend it on the helmet and use the sockets on the helmet, for example. So it will likely be a better option than simply go for a heroic dungeon Great Vault reward. So with this, we are done with the tips of all of the things happening in a day once the season fully launches and what to do roughly in the first couple of weeks before the season partially opens, and then the first week of the partially open season with Mythic 0, normal and heroic raids, but without Mythic Plus and the Mythic raid. So with this recap on this Sunday, we are now done for today. We are once again leaving each other by thanking everyone for having watched the video, as well as everyone else for supporting completely for free by liking and commenting down below on this video, as well as subscribing to the channel itself. Now, with these things out of the way, thank you guys again for watching. See you guys tomorrow, and in the meantime, as usual, I said a rather quick video. I wanted to stay close to 10 minutes. We're not close.